Text functions can sometimes get more complicated than just a simple left, right, or mid. So in a previous video, we talked a little bit about phone numbers and being able to pull the area code out. And that was pretty easy to do because we just used a left function and we said pull out the first three characters. And with a phone number, something like this is pretty easy. You can see the format of a phone number is always going to be the same. So no matter what, if I say pull the first three characters, I'm always going to get those first three, which is the area code. However, there are sometimes when you want to pull data out when it's not so cut and dry. For example, here I'm wanting to pull the first name out of this name column. But if I pull the first three characters, let me show you what happens. I mean, you could probably guess, right? So I'm going to pull from the left the first three characters because Ada has three characters in her name. And you can see there that worked successfully here. But if I want to get all the other names, essentially it's not going to work for any of the other names because none of the other names only have three characters. And if I try to do more characters, then when I try to get Ada's name, it's going to pull too many characters. So you can have some complex issues. And of course, I could write the left formula in each cell. However, that's not going to be really effective for me because the point of the function is to save me time. And if I have to type it in every time, it's not really saving me time, right? So I'm going to introduce two new functions that are often used in conjunction with text formulas or with text functions, left, right, and mid. And that is the find and the len, or length is what it stands for, functions. So what find does is it finds a specific character within a string of text and gives the basically the how many characters in from the left that character is found, and then length gives you the length of a given string of text. So for example, if I say equals, and I'll just do these text functions, or I'll use these functions by themselves first. So find, and the first object is search for what I want to search for. In this example, I'm going to find the space, okay, because in that name column over there, there's only one space, and then I hit comma. Text to search, this is where do I want to search. I'm going to search this column right here, or that cell, comma, and then it says starting at. So you can, but that's optional. You can determine where to start at. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say find the first space you come across in A2. Now in this example, I know there's only one space, so it makes it pretty easy. If I hit enter, it gives me a 4. That's because if we look over here, the space is 1, 2, 3, 4 characters in. All right. So you can see already where I might be going with this using a left function. So if I go down, it's now telling me where the space is in every single cell, or every single name cell, every reference. So instead of just doing a length of 3, instead what I want to do is I'm going to type find. So we're using a nested function here, and I'm going to search for a space within A2, and that's what we want to return. Now, this won't give us exactly what we want quite yet, but let me just show you what we get so far. So now we have Ada. Now it looks right, but let me show you something. If I paste this value here, and I click in here, you'll notice if you look right there, there's actually a space. In other words, it counted, there's 4 characters up to the space, and so my result was it gave me 4 characters. So it's giving me Ada space, which is not really what I want. And if I drag this down, you can see it did work successfully, right? I was able to pull the first name. However, there is a space in front of every name, which when you're working with data, extra spaces can really mess you up if you're not aware those spaces are there. So to get rid of that extra space, I'm going to come in here, and right after the find formula, I'm going to type -1. So really what this formula is doing here, let me grab this text right here, and we'll make it bigger, and then I'll talk about it down here. So what this formula is really doing is it's saying, okay, it's saying, hey, A2 is where we're pulling from the left, right? So we're going to pull from the left of A2, and the number of characters we're going to pull is find the space in A2, and then -1. In other words, we're going to find the space, and it's 4 characters in, and then subtract 1 in order to get rid of that space. So now we've done that. I'm going to drag this down. And just for proof of concept, if I take this over and paste values here, you can see here now that space is gone. Oh, whoops. That space is now gone. You can see there's not a space after the name. It's nice and clean just the way we want it. So perfect. Awesome. So now we're able to get the first name out. Now, the last name is a little trickier, and this is where length is going to come in. Okay. So what we're wanting to do now is pull the last name, but because every last name is a different size, we can't just like when we did the first name, we can't just tell it to pull 5 characters or however many characters. But here's the tricky part. If we just try to find the space, if we say, hey, pull from the right, find the space, and then do that many characters, we'll end up with a problem essentially, because find is always finding it from the left to the right. So find would always come back with 4. So if I were to go, let me just show you. So if I go equals right, and we're going to do it from A2, comma, and we'll use our little find trick that we just learned. Find the space within A2, and we'll even -1, right? Because that's what we did on the left, and we hit enter. Notice what we're getting. I'm going to make this here a little bigger. We use this column a lot here, so I want it the same size as the others. I think it's a 24. There we go. So we only got RUD, and the reason why is because find is equal to 4 if we find the space, and we subtract 1 out, now it's equal to 3, so it's only going to go 3 characters from the right, 1, 2, 3, and there's our RUD. So the question is, how do we get it to give us the proper value? That's where our next function comes in that we're going to learn. So lane, or length. Length gives us the length of a string. So here's my example here. We'll make this this column larger too. So if I go equals length, and we'll just do it by itself, we get a length of 12. It's counting all of the characters in this cell. So it's telling me, hey, there's 12 characters in this cell. Well, since find won't go from left to right, or since find always goes from left to right, what we're going to do essentially is just subtract that amount, that find, from the total length, and that should give us the alternate side, right? Because if there's four characters on this side right here, up to the space, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, the alternate side must have 8 characters, which is the last name. That's how many characters we want. So let me show you what I mean. So instead of going find the space in A2, we're going to do the number of characters we want is the length of A2 minus find the space in A2. And we're going to take out that -1. And we have a last name. So let me pull this out so we can look at it in larger text, kind of like we did this previous column, because I know when I learned these for the first time, it felt really complex. But when you break it down, it really isn't too bad. So what we did is we said find the right of A2. Okay, so we got that, right? And the total characters we want to use is the length, which is 12, right? The total length of this. That's calculating. So 12, or the length of the cell, minus find the space, which is 4. So we say, hey, what's the length of this? And then find this space and subtract that amount, and that's what we want. Okay, excuse me. So that's a really simple example of how to pull names out. If you understand the concepts, it can get pretty tricky, especially if you have multiple spaces and you have different characters. But my experience has shown that you really can pull any text out of a string. You can almost always find patterns if you're using a data set that is, alike. And so you really can pull any text out. And now, if we wanted to, we could put the last name and the first name in 2 different columns. using find and length combined with our text functions.